Ministry can still go on without you. God can still go on without you. That's why it should be about the Jesus culture, not the church culture. Jesus needs to be preached. Jesus needs to be heard. Let's just wait for that.
Hillsong Church celebrity pastor Carl Lentz.
It was a huge fall from grace. Did he tell you he loved you?
Yes, he did.
Did you love him?
Hi guys, welcome to the Jesus Culture, ministering and building and impacting the culture in and out of the church. Now, talking about culture that's building in and out, there's a popular figure that's well known within the Christian community and outside the Christian community. His name is Carl Lentz. A lot of you might know him. They call him a celebrity preacher. A lot of celebrities go to his church in, I think it's Hillsong, New York. A lot of people like Justin Bieber and the Kardashians are affiliated with him.
Lentz was known as a rock star priest at Hillsong, a church previously frequented by celebrities like Chris Pratt and Vanessa Hudgens, and followed online by more than 500,000 people.
That's why I love people more.
You can do your research about that. I'm not really going to focus a lot more on his status as you may, but I just want to talk about a recent event that happened and a few pointers and a few lessons that I think we can all learn from. A lot of things that I'm picking up from the reports that I'm getting from either his confession that he made, and a couple of things that I picked up also from his so-called mistress. Now, I don't know if this is really the girl that he had an affair with, but there's a couple of things also that I picked up from what she was saying that I think they sort of gave me a lot of red flags, a lot of hints. Now, I'm not making this video to shame him, or, well, not that I can say anything that will shame him any more than what he has already done to kind of smear his own name in a way. We've all fallen short of the glory of God. No one is righteous. Not even preachers, not even ministers, because this is not about them. This is about who we lead people towards, which is Jesus. That's why it should be about the Jesus culture, not the church culture. So with that said, I'm going to look at a couple of things that he said, and I'm going to look at a couple of things from his so-called mistress and what she has said and things that she sort of revealed about him. Now, this came out and he wrote in his Instagram, I think it was on his Instagram page. There's a couple of things that he said that I think picked for me that I would like to just focus on. He says, I was unfaithful to my marriage, the most important relationship in my life, and held accountable for that. Taking real time to work on and heal my own life and seek out the help that I need, which is great and perfect. And that's what you should be doing. And over the years, I did not do an adequate job of protecting my own spirit, refilling my own soul, and reaching out for the readily available help that is available. When you lead out of an empty place, you make choices that have real and painful consequences. I really want to focus on that. When you lead out of an empty place, that got me to really think a lot about what he meant by that. But as I said, now he mentioned a whole lot of things. So obviously, the church has held him accountable for his actions or his behavior, and the consequences of that are that he got fired. Now, I don't really understand churches that kind of fire ministers, and by that I mean, okay, I understand that, of course, it's an organization, and when you have a responsibility or when you have a role to fulfill and they feel that you are not upholding that, of course, they have to dismiss you. And I think that's what they mean by fired. But ministry is something that goes on. It's not something that we typically kind of can be fired from. I can't be fired from ministry. I can't be fired from talking about Jesus. Talking about Jesus is ministry. And learning from my mistake and sharing it as a testimony and going on living our testimony is part of ministry. I think that's something that we need to just get clear. So with that said, it's relatively difficult to lead other people when you struggle to lead yourself in certain situations. And I think he probably found himself in a situation where, or in a time where he was struggling to kind of lead himself. Because ministers are people, they're people just like us. He might have had trouble past, for example, or he might have had a lot of things that he was struggling with. And when you're busy focusing on on trying to help other people, but you're not really focusing on yourself a lot, it can become a distraction. Even ministry can become a distraction. And when you said leading from an empty place, that gives you a lot of hints. Now, it's relatively easy to stand up and preach in front of people. There's a practical sense of ministering and practical sense of preaching and teaching that while it's technical, the spiritual aspect of it is that if I'm not doing that and it's coming from a place where I'm doing it out of liberty, out of the sense of liberation that I ought to feel. All right, I'm back once again. So to pick up where I left off, I had a bit of an interruption during the day. The kids had just come back. Talking about leadership, being the person who has to stand up and lead from a point of liberty. The gospel functions and operates from a place of liberty. And if we don't feel liberated as people and our preaching does not liberate us, it becomes that thing that affirms a place where one sort of operates from a place of emptiness, as Carl has just indicated. If I remember quoting him correctly, when you're leading and you're shepherding, it's a very fragile position to find yourself in. At the same time, that comes with a lot of responsibilities. And I know we say this a lot in church. We say that, ministers are people. In actuality, they go through everything that everybody goes through and more. So there's a lot more that comes with that. There's a lot of pressure that comes with that. There's a lot of burnout that comes with that. So you hardly find yourself spaced out and freed to really focus on yourself. You really kind of lose that side of you finding that time and space to minister to yourself as well, and allowing the Holy Spirit to minister to you, or allowing other people to minister to you as well. And I think that's kind of like where he sort of found himself, where he started to kind of do church. What I mean by doing church is you operate from a place where you're serving, but we start worshiping the activities that we do. We start doing church. Church sort of becomes a pattern, and that's not something that he's particularly guilty of. I think everybody becomes guilty of that at some point. I wish people can really, really kind of understand this, because a lot of people kind of want to be the cool preacher. And I mean, a lot of people, especially those who desire to be in ministry, they think the Joel Osteens and the Carl Lentz and the T.D. Jakes and whatever, like it's a cool thing. You like up there, everybody kind of knows you, sees you, you're like the cool preacher who's got it together. The fact of reality is that, everybody falls for the whole fame thing. I think there's just something about fame that's just so attractive.
But Karim says Lentz's rising celebrity may have contributed to his behavior.
When you give somebody so much power, they become God to people. And I think people forgot the concept of religion and beliefs. And I think that people look at Carl like he's God to them.
That people really, really kind of forget that it can make you really lose sight of a lot of things, and those are the dangers that sort of comes with popularity. Has its own merits and demerits. If you want to be the popular preacher, you need to really take a lot of those things into consideration and take notes from a lot of the people who have stumbled and fallen. So with that said, now I want to talk about a couple of things that came out, because I feel like it's very important to highlight the sense of responsibility and obligation that we ought to have, and the tone that we ought to set as Christians for the sake of ministry. Now, I know that he has already repented, he has already apologized, and he's already set his own path. Only he knows the truth about his own stories and his own flaws, where it all started and everything. Now, I'm saying that because of the stories and there are other allegations apparently that came up, and based on some of the things that his girlfriend that he was cheating with said, it just kind of really made me kind of take a step back a little bit and kind of wonder. I mean, it's one thing to kind of find yourself being tempted and making a mistake, but it's a bit of a different story when you kind of, somebody who's very influential in a very influential role, and you kind of like have a pickup line. He seems to have a lot of pickup lines, or he seems to have had a lot of thought around this whole thing. And on top of that, there's also a lot of other people who are coming up with other allegations about how they tried to speak up about his sexual endeavors with other members in the church, and they were silenced because they were seen as causing disorder or gossip in the church. So the reason I'm talking about these things, and it might sound like we're just going on and on and on about rumors and gossiping and whatever, but it's a big deal in a way, because this affects Christendom in a lot of ways. One of the things that I picked up about his behavior from his apparent girlfriend was that he was, they used to get together and drink tequila, and she used to wonder, is it okay for him to be a preacher and be a heavy drinker of tequila? And that gives you a big hint right there, another big red flag for me personally. People who tend to do that are people who tend to look for something that's sort of like a form of escapism from reality. They want to escape something. Being a minister, maybe ministry was being, it was too much for him. He wanted to escape his marriage life. Maybe he wasn't happy in marriage, or maybe there were a lot of issues that he wasn't really dealing with. That's why he was getting into drinking, and he just sort of started to lead from a place of emptiness. And that's a very dangerous place to find yourself in, because when you find yourself being in a place of emptiness, you look to fill that space with something else. It might be in the form of drugs, it might be in the form of sex, it might be in the form of idolatry or anything else that fills you. And if it's not the Holy Spirit that is filling you, I can guarantee you it's going to be other spirits or other forms of spirits or other forms of ideas. So that tells me that he's been probably struggling in his life.
But I have a question. I was like there's something wrong with your marriage that you're sitting here with me? He said, no, it's it's you.
May have been a point in time where he needed to be led, and he needed to maybe just take a break from ministry and just focus on his own life. Guys, if you experience any kind of burnout from church activities, please, by all means, please take a break from that activity. Ministry can still go on without you. God can still go on without you. God can do without you. In fact, God has been doing great without you. You are not this world's savior to ministry. Stop trying to be. You are not Jesus. Take care of yourself, take care of your soul. But anyway, be that as it may be, only he knows what was going on or what was happening. He was unfaithful, or whatever the case may be. There was a lot more going on in their life. Even though they are believers, and yes, even though they are ministering and they are heavily involved in the church. Guys, this can happen to anybody. People have to understand and realize. And I don't want to make it about talking about their personal lives. It's just about they did this and they did that, but they're just humans. They are not Jesus, but they believe in Jesus. So how can we be rooted in the Word and find ourselves being cultured in the Word, so that we don't find ourselves in that path where whatever it is that we find ourselves addicted to does not distract us with our marriage and our relationships and other different aspects of life. Now, when all said and done, who suffers the most?
Even for having the affair with Carl in the beginning, knowing that he was married, is there anything that you would like her to know? Anything you would like to say to her if she were to listen?
I feel bad for her. Woman to a woman, I don't think she deserved to be hurt the way that she did, and I never meant to hurt her.
They have children, that's one of the other things that's really, really bad about this, because there's a lot of stuff that children go through. They cannot comprehend everything that we comprehend the same way that we comprehend it. Obviously, they're not matured enough, but stuff like this really does kind of really mess up children in the way that they think. Hopefully they can find a way to kind of navigate through this and be okay. When I say be okay, I mean, they also have their own relationships to kind of, work out with God, and this can make them question a lot about God and this faith that their parents have been leading them to. So in their own way of sort of comprehending everything, the media attention and everything that they will probably be going through, they may need some counseling. And everybody will probably need counseling. And of course the church members as well. Church members who probably held Carl in high esteem as someone who was leading them. And I just hope and pray that they do not. And if you're one of those people, please do not at any given point in time think that this should alter your understanding or your path and your walk towards building your relationship with God, because it's about God. We are all stewards and we are all servants. Even the most professional chefs or servants can trip and fall, so we gotta help each other out. Once more, there are other developments that have also been occurring that, Hillsong, the leader of Hillsong, Australia is going to conduct an independent investigation about all the allegations and experiences that other people had within that church. So there may be other things that may come up about this church. And that's one of the things that I want people to also just bear in mind, those who are in leadership roles or leadership positions, to just keep in mind that, it's one thing to kind of stumble and fall. It's another when you've got a whole lot to balance. You've got a lot of pull behind you, and a lot of people are depending on what is seemingly your strength. That's something to also take into consideration as well, is that your mistakes become a shadow of negativity for a lot of people as well. It can affect a whole lot. It can affect a ministry. It can affect Christendom, and that's how the devil attacks Christianity, because there's a lot of people who take opportunity to come out and say, well, see, that's what we told you. All these celebrity preachers, all these preachers and Christians, we knew that that's all that they do. He was too good looking. There's no way the ladies could resist him. People love to see someone fall. They don't really love to see someone rise or stand up and pick up themselves again. Then nobody likes that kind of story. People are infatuated with seeing the demise of what was once at its glorious moment or peak of glory. But that's okay. People are people. You can change them. If you want to be in that position where you are going to be at that peak, that's what you should be expecting. That's the climate. The stakes are very high, and the higher you go, the longer the fall is going to be, and the harder you're going to hit. The more painful, the more the consequences. Be careful. We gotta be careful not to mix popularity with ministry. I don't believe that popularity and ministry would go together at all. I don't think ministers are supposed to be popular at all, because there is no way you will tell people, literally try and take people away from everything that they want to do that they shouldn't do, and everybody likes you. There's just no way. It just doesn't happen. I mean, that's what God literally does. He wants to save us, but part of saving us is saving us from ourselves, because we are destructive beings. That's just who we are by nature and by design. It gets lost in translation a lot, I think, and we tend to lose sight of what it is that it's all about. Yes, Jesus needs to be preached. Jesus needs to be heard. It's important to initiate these conversations and to talk about these conversations and to share the gospel with people, to share the freedom that God has given us, the beauty that is in that lies in that, apart from all the noise that's going on in this world about who's right and who's wrong. Because my thing about it is every human being is wrong. God is right. And the only way we're going to know that is if we know God's truth. And I believe that God's truth is vested in the gospel, is vested in Jesus being the Christ. Or rather, that conversation is very important in as much as we may try to be creative with how we reach out to people. It's important not to lose sight of what God's ministry is supposed to achieve ultimately. But most importantly, not to lose ourselves. And I pray for this family that they find themselves, because it's tough. It's a tough world. I really wish them all the best. I really do pray. I really wish that whatever it is that they may be struggling with, I really hope that they do pull through. This isn't how it always was. They just lost their way somewhere along the way. You know, people don't get married because they plan to get divorced or they plan to have problems. So pray and hope for the best. Guys, this is the Jesus culture. Like the video, leave a comment, let's engage. Do me a solid one, do subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want to get more content and know what's going on in future, to get more updates about other video content that I'll be creating. And thanks for watching. Do leave a comment, let's engage, and tell me what you think about this whole saga. All about Jesus, not religion, truth over tradition. Thanks for watching.